Hello, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps YouTube Live. Glad to have you here today, Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. My name's Eric. I'm the lead attorney at Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And we also educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. So I'm glad to have you here. If you have any questions, put them in the chat feature. Thanks for letting me know that the sound is good. I'm always nervous about that. And glad to have you here. So the topic, someone contacted us from Arkansas, and this is what it says. They say, I'm scared. I joined you a while back. Uh, but now I'm just scared. Exclamation mark 3 times. Starting to receive mail from law firms regarding my enormous credit card debt. I am feeling trapped. My health is getting worse. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen to me and my family. Okay, so if you're scared and you're worried, I'm here to put you at rest, uh, so you don't have to be scared and worried. Okay, I'm 74, been an attorney for 46 years, probably filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies before Helps was started in 2012. So I know the law and I know what can happen and what isn't going to happen. So if you're getting Social Security, a pension, disability, VA benefits, 401k, IRA, virtually any form of retirement, your income is safe. It can't be taken from you. Okay? It's safe. Now, even if you were sued and someone got a judgment and they happen to garnish your bank account, okay? Unlikely you'd be sued, but you might be. Then they have to figure out where you bank. No place, no way they can find that out generally. But even if they did, a rule went into effect in 2012 that protects twice the amount of Social Security or federal benefits that you receive automatically from garnishment, regardless of what monies are in there or where they came from. So if you got 3,000 in Social Security, twice that is 6,000. If you got 1,000 in Social Security, twice that is 2,000. That sum of money is protected in your bank account by your bank without you having to lift a little finger. You don't have to do anything. They protect it. They protect it. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, then yeah, there's paperwork that you can file, and it's not that difficult. We help our clients do that when that happens. It doesn't happen very often, but if it does, called a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption, and the court would order that money be released. But as long as you keep less than twice the amount of your federal benefit in that account to which it's deposited, that sum is protected, even if some of the money in that account comes from some other source. Okay? So this person that said they're scared, they've enrolled in Helps, they're obviously receiving protected income. You know, we're going to call them. We probably already have called them. Tell them that you don't need to feel trapped. Okay. Um, you know, if you're you know, go ahead and worry about your health, but don't let the fact that you owe debt lead to you having health issues. Okay, because you don't need to worry; they can't collect from you. So when a person enrolls in Helps, what happens is we send a letter to the creditor or the collector that is bothering you, and it's called a cease and desist letter. In 20 or in 1978, a law was passed called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provides, among other things, if you're represented by an attorney, collectors can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. So when people enroll in Helps, they give us the creditors to whom they owe money, the debt collectors, and we send out what's called a cease and desist letter to that debt collector. And under the law, they have to leave you alone. They can no longer call or send you demand letters. Now, they theoretically could sue you, but doesn't matter. Remember, your income is protected. If one of our clients gets sued, or if you're sued and you enroll in Helps, you give us a copy of the lawsuit. We usually need the first 3 or 4 pages. We don't need everything. And we're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you. We're going to let that attorney know that your income is Social Security is protected, that they can't touch that money. and we're going to call you on the phone and explain to you why they can't take it. Okay. Um, Now, are they going to come after any of your assets? No, no, no. The most they would ever do is get a judgment. They maybe try to garnish a bank account, but if they happen to know. But once again, I've explained how that's protected. Are they going to take your home? No, no. Every state has what's called exemption laws. Those are laws that protect a certain amount of equity in an asset that you own. Equity is how much the thing is worth, less what you owe on it. So let's say you had a car that was worth $5,000 and the exemption for the state was $2,500. That means you would have an equity of $2,500 in the car. Uh, and and that would be $2,500. You have equity of 5,000, but you'd have equity $2,500 over the state exemption. Does that mean that a creditor is going to try to repossess the car? No. It is not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after your non-exempt assets for a lot of different reasons. It's just too complicated, expensive. And then maybe more than one person's name is on the title. If it's a home, they don't even do it on a home. Okay, so and you can always call and talk to us. No, it's possible a judgment could be a lien on the home in some states, but for a lot of different reasons, that's not going to be normally isn't going to be a factor. Okay, so we don't want you to be like this guy that wrote us. He says, I'm scared, trapped. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me and my family. No, call us and talk to us. 855-435-7787. And we have paralegals standing by right now and attorneys that will be glad to talk to you about your situation. Sometimes people call us 2, 3, 4, 5 times before they decide to enroll in helps. When you enroll, all we need is your creditors, their name, address, and account number. And then when you enroll, we keep you on the phone. We'll push a button. You'll get sent an email that says, welcome to helps. That email confirms you're a member of helps immediately. So when we hang up the phone after you enroll in helps, if a creditor calls you on the phone, the next minute you tell them I'm represented by Helps Law Firm, and give them our number, and then you can hang up the phone. If they call us, you'll be in our system as being our client, and they'll leave you alone. It's that simple. So here's an example. This morning earlier, a receptionist called and said, I've got a creditor on the line, Eric. One of our clients' RV is being repossessed. They want to repossess the RV, but they don't want to talk to the client because we had sent a cease and desist letter. So they called, and I said, put them through to me. And I talked to the person, and it was the recovery outfit. And I put them on hold, called the client, and said, hey, listen, they want to pick up the RV. You don't still need it, right? I said, oh, no. Where's it at? Parked in my parking lot. I said, do you mind talking to him? He says, no. Well, and then I told him, I'll give them your number, and they're going to call you back. They'll make arrangements to pick it up. He said, that's good because it's behind a gate, and I have dogs. I don't want the dogs biting them. So I hung up on the client, got back on the phone with the creditor who's going to pick up the RV, and said, hey, go and call this number. He'll talk to you, and you can make arrangements to pick up the RV. So yeah, we talk to your debt collectors. If they call us, we'll talk to them. One of the requirements on that Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is if you have an attorney, it's got to be an attorney that they can talk with. So we talk with attorneys. That's what we do. Or we talk with the creditors and explain to them that your income is protected, you can't pay the debt, and they'll leave you alone. Yeah, I read that the new rules for Medicare work or volunteer requirements do not apply to anyone 65 or older. I think that's right. I've got to read up on this law because I'm supposed to do a video with Jeff Hoyt on senior living on Friday about the the great new bill or whatever they call it. But I understand as far as seniors is concerned, there's maybe some positive things in it, nothing negative. I watch so many helps videos over the last week that I never have another question to ask. Well, that's great. You're getting educated, Jimmy. You're getting educated. Um, and I hope it's a good education. I think it is. Okay. So Mary says, I just got sued by Capital One. Sent a copy to Helps. Got a reply from Kaisa just moments ago. We'll go through it after the live. Yeah, when a Helps client gets sued, and you do get sued occasionally. You may never get sued, but you might be. And if you do, you get us a copy of the lawsuit. We're going to send you an email explaining why you don't need to go to court, why your income is protected. We're going to send you a copy of the letter that we sent to the attorney who sued you, explain to them that you're not going to do anything. We understand they're going to get a judgment, and reminding them of the protected nature of your bank account. Okay, and so, yeah, that's what we do. My bank, for whatever reason, just reversed payments on 3 of my credit cards. If this created a late payment, everyone is getting cut off, no money. I don't really understand that, Peter. You may want to say that again. I'm not sure if you're saying something or if that's a question. So this person contacts us from Maryland. Um, I have been receiving letters from a company, Midnight Velvet. That's an interesting name. Saying, and I looked it up, and it looks like it's almost like a mail order catalog. Saying that I owe them money. I have no evidence in any email account of receipt for purchases from this company. I've received a dozen letters with different amounts owed. Last letter received yesterday said, if I don't send a payment, they will turn me over to collections. I have not called their toll-free number, nor have I looked for an account in my name on their website. Letter has my name and current address with an account number. What is your advice? Well, I don't know who sent this, if it's a client or someone else, but I mean, you can certainly call them if you wanted to and talk to them and find out if it is your bill. I mean, you don't need to. I mean, if your income is Social Security or pension, disability, VA benefits, it's protected. You don't need to pay them anything. They may very well turn it over to collection. You may get a debt collector contact down the road. If you do, you get it to us. We'll send a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. But it does look like this Midnight Velvet is a legitimate company. They got terrible reviews. So it may be something that you could have ordered and maybe forgot about from years ago, and they're trying to collect on that. I don't know. So this person contacts us from Ohio. I was served a credit card summons that I do owe, but I can't pay. I have to respond by July 23rd, 2025. Please help. Thank you. Well, okay. If you get sued, sometimes the lawsuit is usually made up of 2 parts. It depends on the state law where you live. Okay, but normally a normal lawsuit would have what's called a summons and then a complaint. A summons is usually the top page of the complaint, and it tells you, maybe 1 or 2 pages, that you've been sued. It gives the case number, the court, and it tells you how many days you have to file an answer if you intend to contest the lawsuit. And sometimes it might put a date and time on there, and you think, oh no, I have to go to court. Not so. If you read it carefully, that's if you're going to contest the lawsuit. If you're not going to contest the lawsuit, then the creditor eventually would just get a judgment. Okay? So, if you owe the money, you don't need to contest the lawsuit. Okay? And if you don't owe the money, you probably don't need to contest the lawsuit if your income. You could if you want, but so no, we tell this person no, that if you read it carefully, you don't have to go to court on July 23rd, 2025, or respond. Now, if you want to contest it, you could you could file paperwork and contest it, but you don't have to do that, especially if you don't owe the money. Now, if you're a client, you would get us a copy of the lawsuit, and we would, like I explained earlier, we'd send a letter to the attorney that sued you, letting them know that you're not going to respond, and we understand they're going to get a judgment. Remind them of the protected nature of your blank account. The sheriff himself came by for no reason, just haven't comment on my furniture. I don't know what that's about, Ryan. Okay, so Jimmy knows all about Midnight Velvet. That could be a different catalog that this person had. So Miss H asks another question. She's always full of questions. A neighbor had a lien on the property she lives in that was in her mom's name for work done. The mom passed away. Did the lien go away after she passed, or is it still on the house, on the home with the daughter? Um, well, it kind of depends what kind of lien it is. If it was for work that was done on the house, it's probably not a mortgage. Probably what's called a UCC lien, Uniform Commercial Code lien. And that can be a lien that normally lasts for a few years, like 5 years, and then it disappears, goes away. Although sometimes a title company who puts out title insurance, they might get nervous about a UCC lien, even though it's expired and they can't do anything. They might insist that it need to be paid when it really doesn't need to be paid. So it depends how old it is, Ms. H. But it doesn't automatically go away when a person dies. Okay, it goes away normally under the law after so many years. Okay. Um, so this person contacts us from Virginia. Um, they get $2,200 in Social Security, has $13,000 in credit card debt and loan bills that are overwhelming him. He can't afford necessary medical bills and utility bills. Well, you don't need to pay the credit cards. Stop paying them. Um, helps. What helps is designed for is, almost half of seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line, and they're classified as economically vulnerable. And many of them simply owe debt they can't afford to pay. And so, helps is designed for the half of seniors that are economically vulnerable. The seniors that have money are usually able to take care of their debt, but the seniors that have lesser incomes and have debt, they don't know what to do. They contact us. They can stop paying the credit card debts, and that way they can afford to pay for their medicines and their utility bills and their food and whatever. Okay? So this person contacts us from Alabama. They want information. As I am unable to talk on the phone, my daughter passed in March of this year, and my grandson now lives with me. Email and text would be preferred method of communication. I was contacted and threatened by a debt collector about a debt from 2018 that I didn't know existed. Well, we can communicate by email if we need to. It's a lot easier to communicate by phone, at least at the beginning when we ask questions of people, because it's kind of a rapid fire thing. We ask question, you know, where you live, what state you're in, your age, buying a home, renting, how much you owe on the home, buying a car, own a car, you owe any student loans, you owe any income taxes, anyone filed a lawsuit against you, and then we read you what we do. But, if you're deaf and you needed help, we can do it over the phone or text if we needed to. But 99.98% of the time, we just do it over the phone. Okay. What credit cards have you had sue any of your clients and garnish bank accounts in your past and present experience? Well, probably a lot of them or any of them could do that. Now, if you're asking, is there a credit card company that's more likely to sue than another credit card company, then yeah, Discover Bank does. And I've explained before, they do that as for a calculated reason. I think someone at Discover Bank wanted to get the reputation out there that, hey, if you didn't pay Discover Bank, you were going to get sued, and people would be scared. And so they might not pay their other creditors and pay Discover Bank. So that's why they do it. They just made a flat out policy that if you're not going to pay them, they're going to sue you. And they pretty much do that. But if you're a senior or younger and you're getting disability or protected income like Social Security, pension, whatever, you don't need to pay them if they get your judgment proof. Now, are they going to garnish your bank account? Once again, I explained how they can't as long as you keep it under a certain amount. And for them to garnish your bank account, they'd have to know where you bank, and that's not always easy for them to know. But you don't need to worry about it. Sometimes I'll tell people, they're worried about getting sued. I say, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, about the worst thing that could happen, and it's not a bad thing. If you got sued and they got a judgment and tried to garnish your bank account, it doesn't matter. They can't collect anything. So there really is no worst thing that's going to happen. Okay? There is no worst thing. Does establishing an LLC or sole proprietorship help protect any funds in excess of the 2 times the amount in the account? Well, okay, so if you get Social Security, when I talk about 2 times being protected, that's automatic protection. Okay? That's done by the bank automatically. A rule went in effect 2012 that tells the bank to examine where your money came from. It came from a federal source. They times two, and they protect it automatically. If you happen to have more than that in there, it's still protected. It's just not protected automatically, which means if they did garnish and you had more than twice the amount of your federal benefits, Social Security in your bank account, they could hold up the excess over twice the amount, and then you have to file some paperwork called a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption to get that released. We help people do that occasionally, okay, when they need our help. So a LLC is a limited liability corporation. That's a corporation. So sometimes, if you owe some debt and you've got a LLC, which is a limited liability corporation, if you're sued individually and they did garnish your bank account and you had a LLC and the bank account was in the name of the LLC, then the garnishment wouldn't work. They couldn't take money out of that bank account. They'd have to have sued the LLC to take money out of the account. So if you do have an LLC account, yeah, you could keep, and if there's no judgments against it, you could keep money in that account. Creditors, if they tried to garnish, wouldn't be able to do it because they would have a judgment only against you individually, not the LLC. Now, if it's a sole proprietorship, That's different. That means the account then is in your name only, or if it's a doing business as. So Eric Olsen doing business as Johnson's Roof Cleaning or whatever, Olsen's Roof Cleaning. So that's my individual account, and that if they garnish that account, they could take money out of that account. Okay. Tina asks, will credit card debt judgments result in a sheriff's sale to settle that debt? No, no, no. You know, you need a lot of people that are on the YouTube live. This is the first time they're listening to me, so I do repeat the same things over again, and I'm happy to do that. So one of the things I repeat often and tell people all the time is that, see, if someone sues you and gets a judgment, if it's a judgment creditor like a collection company, state law protects a certain amount of equity in assets you have, a certain amount of equity in a car, a certain amount of equity in a home or household goods, whatever. But if you have equity, which means equity is what the thing is worth less than what you owe. But if you have equity in something more than what the exemption is for the state where you live, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors, if they get a judgment, to go after or take that property. They don't do it. It's too complicated for them to do it. But sometimes you might read articles and stuff saying that that could happen. And if you've heard me long enough, you heard me say that, you could go to Circle K at 10:25 p.m. on Friday night and get hit by a drunk driver. That's possible. It could happen at 10:25 exactly. You could get hit. But do you live your life that way? No. Is that going to keep you from driving to Circle K? I don't think so. Okay. No. So no, you don't need to worry about sheriffs trying to take and sell your property. I'm 64 and just had emergency surgery, and the bill is crazy right before my Medicare starts. Bad timing. I'd be an absolute wreck worrying if I hadn't found helps. Yeah, joining this week. Yeah, it's too bad the timing, but once again, your income's protected. You're going to be okay. Stone Man here. Not to worry. So this person contacts us from Washington. My wife and I are 80 some years old, and we've worked for a number of years past retirement to pay excessive debt and try to make ends meet. We currently don't have a direct issue with creditors. However, if I keep working, I can see no way to get out of the debt. And you're going to hear why in a second. We live from month to month and have no savings. We currently have about $155,000 in debt, not including our mortgage. Some of it includes 2 cars and a travel trailer, and the rest, I believe, is unsecured debt. We can only afford minimum monthly payments. To my knowledge, none of the debt involves a lien on our home. Probably wouldn't, unless it was a mortgage. My 2024 tax return shows an adjusted gross income of quite a bit of money. And 50,000 of that was work income. The rest is Social Security, a military retirement, and VA disability income. From your videos, I understand that all my income, minus my work income, is protected. However, every time I Google the government income about garnishment, there's always some caveat, like certain instances my military can be garnished. I have none of the old child support type government legal exceptions. Well, I haven't seen military pay get garnished. Okay. There might be some really sketchy way, but 46 years of practice, I haven't seen it. Okay. Let's go on. With my current income, everything gets paid, but living expenses get very tight. I have no savings or other emergency funds. If an unexpected bill hits, I have to rely on a payday loan and pawns to hopefully cover it. And I must keep working with no end in sight. And he's 80 years old, 80 some years old. God forbid I get seriously ill or have an accident. If I quit work now, my living expense money is cut in half. I won't work. I filed for bankruptcy and it was discharged in 2017. And that's not an option. You don't need to file for bankruptcy anyway, but let's go on. He says, I would like to retire from work in 2 or 3 months and hope you can help me reach that goal along with my cutting the onerous debt load. I'm willing to do this. Okay. I'll be very responsible to your request for additional information. And then it gives his name. And I'm sure we contacted him. So what we're going to tell him? Well, he doesn't have to pay the the debt that he owes except the mortgage payment. Now, as far as the cars, if you want to keep both cars, you can. You're going to need to keep making the payment. Maybe you don't need both cars. Maybe you want to let one car go back. You don't have to keep the cars. They'll get the car that goes back. They would you no longer have to worry about that car payment. Your insurance will go down. Uh, they're going to sell the car. They're probably going to sell for less than what's owed. They're going to send you a letter saying what you owe. It's called a deficiency notice. Give it to helps. We're going to send a cease and desist letter out to the lender. We're going to have to leave you alone, as you don't need to worry about all these credit cards that you're paying. So you're going to be fine. And Washington has a pretty big exemption on homestead exemption. So I don't know how much his home is worth, but his home won't be at risk. You're going to be okay. Just need to, if you're in this situation that we talk about today, give us a call, 855-435-7787. Get on our website, look at more of our YouTube videos, call us. We're going to answer your question. You're going to be okay. You don't need to worry. Um, so I guess Tater's talking about a purchase money security interest. I think I may have talked about that. I think I talked to someone today about it. I don't know if it was you or someone else. Someone on the phone, what was it, yesterday? They called me they had a couch they bought from a furniture store, and they wanted to know if there was a lien on the couch. And I said there might be what's called a purchase money security interest. And I asked them, so how old is the couch? He said, well, it's well over a year old, Mr. Olsen. I said, well, the couch, no one, couches aren't worth very much. No one wants to use couches. They have some. I doubt very much the lender. They may have a purchase, what's called a lien on it. I doubt very much they're going to try to come by to pick it up. And if they did, you don't have to give it to them. I mean, they technically have a lien, but they can't come in your house to repossess the couch. And I think I said, well, if you have a dog or cat, you could tell them the dog or cat has been using it and peed on it or whatever. I guarantee them they're not going to come by and pick it up. They're not going to come by and pick up your couch. Okay. They use the lien, a purchase money security. There's two types. There's a purchase money security interest lien, and then there's a non-purchase money security interest lien. I may have talked about this yesterday, where you go and get a loan and you put down certain assets. And the reason they do that is they want you to think that if you don't pay the debt, they could come pick those items up. Okay. Now, rental is different. If you have, Aaron's rent to own, you're not buying it. You're renting it. Okay. And then you do need to give it back if you don't make the payment. Okay. if it's rent to own. I always tell our clients, if you know, don't don't go to a rent to own place. Don't. I mean, if you need a new sofa or a new refrigerator or a new washer and dryer, get on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. You can find them really cheap there. Okay. But if you go to, Aaron's and rent, you're going to be paying 3 or 4 times what the thing is worth over the years. Uh, a creditor can go after a single member LLC. Well, yeah, if they sue the LLC, but if you own it individually, Yin Yang is saying, uh, if you own it individually, they can't sue the LLC. No, I mean because you own it individually, not the LLC. They're not their practice to go after the LLC. So this person contacts us. Oh, from Arkansas. There are 2 lawsuits against me. Discover credit card has a balance of $2,300 and Capital One credit card is $2,500. They're now the one company now. I think they're both together. Uh, I'm afraid of losing my father's home that was left to me when he passed away, and this is my primary home. What do I do about this situation? Thank you. Well, they live in Arkansas. Arkansas has an unlimited exemption on home as long as it's 80 acres out in the country or 1/4 acre or less in the city. Well, they're not going to be able to take your home. They won't go after your home anyway. You don't need to worry about it. We'll go over it with you, but not to be concerned. So this person contacts us from Mississippi. They're 69 years old. They have $1,100 in Social Security and 1,000 in some other income. I don't see what, but they're renting where they live. They filed a Chapter 13, but it got dismissed. A Chapter 13 is a type of bankruptcy where you make a payment over a period of 3 to 5 years. But they couldn't make the payment, so the Chapter 13 got dismissed. They called, looks like yesterday. We went over it again with them, and they enrolled. They have about 10,000 in credit card debt. And plus, in addition, they're going to surrender a couple vehicles and a couple other loans. When person was in the Chapter 13, they were paying $900 a month. Now that the case has been dismissed, they're starting to hear from those creditors again. So, yeah, she doesn't need to worry. She doesn't need to pay the debt. So what if the Chapter 13 got dismissed? Maybe the Chapter 13 should never have been filed in the first place. The problem with the Chapter 13, you know, I did, 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies. A Chapter 13 could be designed so that the attorney fees get paid first. And some attorneys might put someone in a Chapter 13 when they know practically the person isn't going to work. It's going to fail. But they may not care because By the time it fails, they'll have been paid their fee. Terrible to think that attorneys do that, but attorneys, when they give advice to people, they should look at the entire picture. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. And that's what we do. It helps. We try to look at the entire picture. Got to realize that we don't turn anyone away. The cost to enroll helps is so minimal. We don't. You know, it's just really minimal. And so, yeah, there's no incentive for us if we even had that incentive to try to steer someone to enroll in helps when we thought there was a better way for them to handle it. No, we're happy to tell people what to do if there's a better idea. It doesn't matter. We don't make enough money, but we're honest too, and it's karma. We want to do the right thing for seniors and let them know exactly what the deal is. Okay, this person contacts us from Washington. They have 50,000 in debt. Please call us when you have time. And it looks like we did call her back a couple times, and finally talked to her yesterday. Struggling with her debt, stopped making payments. Received a summons from Bank of America. We discussed how her income was protected, and we talked about the protections on her vehicle in Washington, that it wouldn't be at risk. Okay, so that's what we do. So this person contacts us from Idaho. He's in his mid 50s, and he's a member of, it says, the Shoshone tribe, and he has a home, but it's on tribal lands. And one of our attorneys says that he was very caught up in the weeds of improper service because he thinks the tribal police. And we explained to him that you know, we don't get involved in representing people in court or giving legal advice. We give legal information. Um, so I'll go on. Service of process on an individual on an Indian reservation generally follows the same procedures as for other services within the state, but with specific considerations for tribal sovereignty and the potential need to consult with tribal legal authorities. Generally, the process can be served by a sheriff or deputy sheriff, any peace officer, court martial, or a person over 18 years of age. And this guy he may want to continue with Idaho legal aid to try to get the summons dropped, but he doesn't really need to. His income is protected. He enrolled with us, what it looks like, because he didn't want to hear from these creditors anymore. Yeah, so some people, if you've been served improperly, you could contest the service, but then they could just serve you the right way and then eventually get a judgment, and so you might choose not to waste your time and not worry about it. Guys, kind of funny on these comments sometimes. I have to weed through the comments to find one that's I don't mind. Don't mind. Okay, because the people that are listening to me that need our help, yeah, they're listening to what I have to say, and maybe they're being entertained by some of the comments. Okay. Um, this potential client was scammed in January of this year. She was with the same bank for 35 years. Scammers took all of her money from both her accounts and left her 96 cents. The bank confirmed that she was scammed, but they did not protect her money. The bank treated her as a criminal. The bank did not investigate or open up a new account elsewhere. It says Region Finance is threatening to move to a lawsuit. She is currently utilizing a debt relief company. We told her what we did. All her income is protected. And we did talk to her about a reverse mortgage. She doesn't need to pay the credit card debts. So yeah, if you call, no matter what your situation, you can talk to us. We'll go over it with you. There's not too many seniors that we can't help. Very rarely. And then if we can't help you, we're going to point you in the right direction. So this person calls us from Virginia. They get Social Security disability as their only income. They have a home with minimal equity. There's $13,000 in credit card debt, and it says the payments are overwhelming him, and he can't afford necessary medical bills and utility bills. And we told him what we did, went over his situation with him, and he enrolled in HELPS. We're going to send a letter out to those creditors he owes money to. You're not going to have to pay him anymore. They can't call him or send him demand letters. Doesn't matter if he gets sued, they can't collect from him. He's not going to be overwhelmed anymore. That'd be a good topic. Seniors with debt, don't be overwhelmed. And you're going to use the money for he's going to use the money for his quote necessary medical bills and utility bills. Okay. So this person calls us from California. They got 72, and they got $1,300 in Social Security and a pension, $1,150 in a pension. Now, don't ever think if I read any of these stuff that I'm talking about you, because I'm probably not. That may sound like you, but it's not necessarily going to be you. Okay, and I try to leave out little details that might identify it. But if you think, oh, that's my brother, it's not your brother. It's just a lot of seniors have the same darn problems. Okay, and so it just sounds like you, but it isn't. So I'll go on with this guy. He says, I have credit card and payday loans. Well, there are millions of seniors that have credit card and payday loans, not you or your friend. So I'm not talking about you or your friend. Okay, these bills are making it very difficult to buy groceries. My rent is only $1,075. Do you imagine how many people pay that exact amount in rent in this country? Tens of thousands. Anyway, which I can only barely manage. Thus causing my last funds for food to manage. So he gets to the end of the month, he didn't have any money for food. I don't know if you could hear that in the background. I could not afford good fish or chicken, which I have to substitute. He has to substitute other food for that. I don't know if I've read this one before or not. It looks familiar, but anyway, I don't think so. And he says, I'm worried about getting sick, getting diabetes. I'm able to make my rent, and making my rent and being able to buy healthy groceries has become almost impossible to handle. I collect Social Security and a modest pension. I have no other type of assets whatsoever. I never miss a payment toward my bills as I want to keep a good credit score. But now the interest makes it so hard to lower my balance because I basically live off my credit cards at this point. Well, you don't need to worry about the credit score. I mean, if you're going without your food and threatening your health, uh, and you can rebuild your credit. Helps has a program. We've talked about it before, 7 steps to a 720 credit score. After you've been a part of Helps for 3 months, you can enroll in that program. It's free. You can rebuild your credit. Okay, but let me go on. My car is going on 13 years old, and I cannot see any way I can buy another one. Well, 13 years old, that would make it a, what, 13 years ago? 2012? Whatever. Yeah, I drive a 2008 Honda Ridgeline. Okay. I mean, you could buy a Honda or a Toyota or something like that that's in the early 2000s and can have hundreds of thousands of miles on it. It's probably going to last you forever, you know. Um, and there are ways to get cars, less expensive cars. Owner only runs good. Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. But anyway, let's go on. He's worried about his car breaking down. Okay, I have to have a car at least 10 or 12 more years. I'm 72 years old and somewhat decent health. I look forward to seeing how all of this delineated above can help my situation. So then he calls back on July 1st. I'm still wading the waters. In other words, he's checking us out more. I should be in contact soon. I have a medical procedure scheduled in mid-July, which is causing me hesitation on my bill situation. I hope to reach out towards by the end of July. Thank you. I look forward to talking to help soon. So that was on July 1st. Well, he called us on July 7th, 2 days ago. And the paralegal said, or one of the attorneys says that we completed intake, read paragraphs, quoted fees, and enrolled. And says that she was a really nice lady but couldn't stop talking. Well, that's not you. We talk to a lot of people that can't stop talking. So don't think that's referring to you. Um, we emailed her. We have some form emails on like 400 or 500 emails on all these different topics, and we sent one to her on how to stop automatic payments coming out of her account. Told her how to do that. Um, she has a person has a couple creditors they want to keep. Well, a lot of our clients have a couple creditors they want to keep, so it's not you I'm talking about here. I also told her about YouTube Live. So maybe this person is listening to me right now, but it's not you, because we probably got hundreds of clients that fit the same description. Hundreds. Okay. And then they made some comment. She was a little bit worried about us. If you're worried about us, check us out. Okay. I mean, we've got lots of YouTube videos. You can look at the comments. You can look at our Google reviews, whatever. Helps has been around long enough that it's really clear what we do. And one thing we do is we give seniors complete information. We're not like most of these debt management companies, nonprofit ones. They sign seniors up and they never tell them, by the way, your income is protected. You don't need our help. No, they sign them up because they want their money and never tell them the most important fact is that their income is protected. If you're enrolled with a debt management or debt settlement company and you've never been told that your income is safe and protected and can't be taken from you, you're being scammed by that debt management. They're being fraudulent with you. They're not giving you the complete truth. So Jimmy says, I have this 2016 car with 14,000 miles on it. My mechanic keeps yelling at me to use the car more as a battery, as it's always in sad shape. Yeah, it's possible to get a bad car. Thankfully there are some types of cars that seem to keep running. I used to know this website where I used to look at it. I can't remember this guy. that talks about used cars, but it is possible to get, you know, a guy selling a used car on Facebook Marketplace or on Craigslist, an individual, not a car company. If they represent that it's running good, they're probably being honest with you because they don't want you calling them back next week, tell them that it doesn't run good. But a car company, used cars are sold as is. You drive it away and it breaks down. It's your problem. Okay. Oh, so a guy called me today. He got a check in the mail from Regional Finance, and it was. He wanted to know if it, if the check was good, and apparently it was good. It was what they call a live check. And it says if you cash this check, then you're agreeing to a loan, and that they legally can do this. But the interest rate's going to be over 40%. I told him, and he wanted to know, well, do I have to pay it? If I cash this check and use the money, I could sure use the money. Uh, and I told him, I said, well, I said, your income, Social Security, its pension is protected. If you didn't pay, there's nothing they could really do. I don't encourage it. I didn't encourage him to cash the check and then enroll. He was not a member of HELPS. I just told him what the law was. And what he was worried about is he had a home, and he said, can they put a lien on my home? And he said, I have it in a trust. And I said, what kind of trust? And he says, well, it's a revocable trust. Um, so this is what I sent him. I says, whether or not assets in a trust are protected from judgment creditors depends on the kind of trust. The most popular trust is the revocable living trust. Usually the maker of the trust is also the trustee. So if you set that trust up, you're the trustee, which means you can determine what happens to your money in the trust. So because of that, you retain control over the assets in the trust. The trust keeps your assets from going through probate, but it doesn't protect against a judgment creditor, so it can still be revoked. So if you owe a creditor money, a judge could simply order you to revoke the trust and pay the money. Yeah, a revocable trust doesn't guarantee that there still won't be a lien on the property and that there still won't be a problem. Okay, so yeah, so Jimmy's talking about, yeah, if you have a car payment you can't afford, there's so many transportation options available. Some cities have transportation for seniors that's free. There's Lyft. I talked to someone, I don't know if it was today or not, their car payment was $700. And I knew they were paying at least $200 for car insurance. And that was like almost a third of their income. I said, you don't need to keep the car. Well, my husband loves the car. He wants to keep the car. Well, you can keep it if you want, but you don't have to. But for $700, I said you could. They had a garage where they lived. You could keep that car in the garage for at least 3 months. You could save up a couple $1,000s. You have enough. You probably heard that. Under. Uh, you have enough money to make the car payment. To buy a car for cash. It's up to you. Okay. So it is that time. It's been an hour. I'd like to thank you for participation and for your good questions. Call us if you have anything. Press the like button. Please subscribe to our channel. More people find out about helps from YouTube than any other source. So it's important. And if you have a question, you can put it in the comments. We look at those periodically and try to answer them. But I will be here tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a great day. Bye.